My name is Terry Fleischwasser. I'm running for Councillor Division 4, Kingaroy South Bennett Regional Council election 19th of March. I was born in the South Bennett in a little place called Cumbia at the foot of Bundy Mountains, Alice Creek in actual fact. Moved to town, the second youngest of 7 children from a farming family. Limited education, finished my education in grade 8 at the Kingaroy State Primary School. Worked 3 mornings a week before school on a milk run from grade 5 on, so I had a great work ethic, and I still think to this day and age, work ethic, strong work ethic, is the most wonderful thing you can give your children. Commitment to community has always been probably a big focus in my life. I was very fortunate in the 80s to be invited to join the Kingaroy Lions Club. At that point in time, I was probably the youngest lion in the club, and the club was 45 members or something, a mature businessman, and that was a great learning curve for me to give back to my community. My community was sustaining me in my small business from very humble beginnings in 1975. So I was well down the track to establishing myself in my own business, and I had to give something back to my community. I gave back to my community in many ways. I was the president of the Lions Club the rodeo committee for some 20 years, running some 25 rodeos, raising significant funds for CareFlight, the Endeavour Foundation, Blue Care, a whole lot of other people around the town. People that, the volunteers of this country who provide the social capital of our community. Social capital is about the people in the community. Your community is only as good as the input of the people in your community. If you have a strong community feeling, you have a very healthy community, generally. So I guess that was the thing that really made me stand up. I've always believed in 2 things. One is, it's not what you are that holds you back, it's what you think you're not. And I think we're all very critical of being our own worst critic at times. When I decided to run for council in 2000, I went to the mayor and CEO and I said, look, my idea is that I will stand this time for election, get the experience of going through an election, and then perhaps go in next time. And they both said to me, Terry, if you put your hand up, there's every opportunity you will go into council. I again went into council, thoroughly enjoyed the interaction, became a very, very quick learning curve for me. So the mayor said to me the day after the election, he said, you have 2 opportunities, two portfolios to select from. One is environment and health, the other is sport and recreation. And I immediately took sport and recreation because I had a strong sporting background. He said, no, he said, we believe that you should take on environment and health because it is the weakest arm of council and it needs an enormous shake. Well, I thought I didn't really know where I was going to from that point in time because it was enormous to think of waste management. I knew very little about waste management. I knew little about health. I knew little about the EPA. I knew little about a whole range of issues. But I was fortunate enough to have 2 good directors that I worked closely with in council. I learned fast, they learned fast. We formed a very formidable team. I was working inside the council to get the funds to do the projects that we were having to contend with, and he was providing the on-ground business skills. So we were a board and management combination right from the beginning, and that's one of the very, very, very things that are most of paramount importance in a council, that you must have clear delineation between council and management. Sometimes you may need to have to micromanage, but council management. So there's some of the things that I've learned in those 8 years that I was a council. The reason why I'm standing for council again this time is the belief that I have the experience to be an effective person on council. As I see it, the council will change dramatically after this election. From 6 positions will change on the current council. That means they're going to be short on the ground of practical experience. That's the main reason why I put my hand up. Secondly, I believe that when I finished in 2008, I had unfinished business. It's very ceremoniously dropped from being a councillor one day to being a nobody the next day. I was enjoying my time at council, achieving many good things. I still have the passion to be living in this community to do the right thing by all of the ratepayers. I really can't understand why Moreton Resources are continuing on to investigate the possibility of an open cut coal mine so close to town in Kingaroy. When you consider that Tarong or Stanwell have indicated to them they have no wish to purchase the coal from them, it makes me consider, where is this going to go? It would be impossible or unfinancially viable for them to truck the coal anywhere. They would have to find a market for it. So I think it's a storm in a teacup. I'm personally dead against the mine. I think we, by bringing another mine, would only replace the one we've already got, and they are a very good responsible corporate citizen to the South Bernard. So I think why put an existing business in jeopardy of another one that really may be a storm in a teacup. I think the public meeting the other evening in the town hall showed conclusively that people were dead against the mine. Moreton Resources came there with the sole purpose of grabbing a social, what they call a social policy, a social acceptance of the mine to get to go ahead. And the residents gave them, in no uncertain terms, that was not going to be the case. I can't believe that next week they came out and they're going to say they're going to romance the public. I don't think romance was the word, but they were going to continue to communicate with the public to see if they could get the public to change their minds. I don't think they will. That's a very good question, because I think this entails people who have the capacity to think outside the square. To look at what we have with existing businesses in town and in our areas, in the whole of the South Bernard, how we can value add and bring those businesses closer together to look at a longer future sustainable workforce for the South Bernard region. We have on one hand Swickers Bacon Factory, who have openly declared that they are ready to expand, that they want to increase their business. They're a strong, sound business, probably the single biggest employer in the South Bernard. You look at the new, exciting business venture by Gina Reinhardt in growing Wagyu beef here in the South Bernard, and I see there is a golden opportunity, and this is where council should be playing their role. Council can become a mediator to bring these businesses together, to sit them around the table and to look at the possibilities that may come from these two companies talking to each other. If Gina Reinhardt is going to grow herds of Wagyu beef in the South Bernard, where are they going to be slaughtered? Who's going to do that part of the processing of that? Wouldn't it be wonderful to think if we could get Swickers and Wagyu beef together, even if we had to build a new facility somewhere, maybe not on that site but in close proximity, that we could use the opportunity of slaughtering the beef here, packaging the beef here, selling it by carcass, selling it by as packaged goods, and then use our most underutilised asset in the South Bernard, and that is our airport. We have the capacity to process products in this area for world markets that can leave Kingaroy and be in anywhere in the world within 24 hours. It is an vastly underutilised asset that we have. We haven't even begun to explore the full potential of it. I think we have. I think council drastically needs people who have the capacity to look outside the square when it comes to newly proposed business of the area. Every business opportunity that comes along must be investigated thoroughly, given the facts, understanding the potential of this new business. What will be how will it be sustainable for the future? How many people will it employ? all the other service industries that are associated with those businesses will come also. I think that's the type of council I'd be looking for, and they would be some of the things that I'll certainly be following up on if I get re-elected to council. I often think of the South Burnett as Australia in lots of ways. Australia cannot do without international money coming in to provide finance for some of the big projects in this country. The South Burnett is on the same scale, but a smaller scale. We can't afford to provide all the infrastructure ourselves. I believe quite firmly that a lot of the infrastructure that we provide as a council or as a nation should be provided by developers. Ratepayers shouldn't be building hospitals. Developers should be building hospitals. Long-term contracts that give developers and investors a return on their money so that ratepayers are not putting out the monies that would be spent for other projects in the community and in the council against the infrastructure projects. If we look at the overall idea of bringing new business to the South Burnett, we have to look for bigger partners. With the Darling-Downs Health and Hospital Service that I sit upon, we look for new partners to increase our medical facilities in the South Burnett. Our partnership with Griffith University, bringing together a medical school, not only to Kingaroy, but to Stanthorpe and Goondiwindi. These are pieces of infrastructure that brings together young doctors to practice in our rural communities. We have a great shortage of rural doctors in Australia. I sit on another board that recruits doctors from around the world to Australia. So it's the investment in local council, local government, local areas by outside money that can give us long sustainability with jobs, job creation, and we should not only look at the outside interests that can come and invest in here, we should also look closely at the very entrepreneurial businesses that we have in this area. We've never been short on entrepreneurs in the South Burnett region. And there are numerous numbers of family businesses that Dad started and the boys have taken it on, and they've grown to multinational companies that provide an enormous amount of infrastructure, jobs, spending money within the community. We should look at these closely. How else can we make these businesses value add to them? Council has an important role to play with this. We employ economic development officers to give us these ideas. But it's not their responsibility wholly and solely. It is the council's responsibility. Think outside the square, investigate the opportunities. Every person that walks into that council office who may have a good idea should get the time of day, should get the opportunity to present their case forward, should be given every opportunity for them to advance that business in the South Burnett. One of the great things about living in the South Burnett is the relaxed lifestyle that we live. We live in a beautiful, clean air. If you look at the South Burnett right at this present time, it is at its peak. The grass is green, country looks great. It is a pleasure to live here. We have wonderful community. We have wonderful community support for all those people in the community who need that assistance. One of the great things I learned in the Disability Employment State was saying that people enjoy being here because there is community support. I was talking to a lady down the street the other day. She was going along a little gopher. She said, one of the great things about Kingaroy is that I can go into almost any business in Kingaroy. It is about community. It's about lifestyle. It's about atmosphere. It's about clean, healthy country living. We don't suffer for we're not very short on, we're not short on many of the sporting events. We've got nearly all the sporting, we've got wonderful dams, recreation, great place to live. I couldn't think of living anywhere else. When I first went to council in 2000, I had a preconceived idea about what were the most important things for community residents. And no, they weren't roads, rates and rubbish. They were about area beautification. They were concerned that our town must look beautiful when a person drove into it. That is, clean, tidy, gardens well kept, the shopping centre or the business heart of the town, the amenity of that. They're the sorts of things that make people stop and spend money in our town. At the moment, our town is looking quite dowdy. Not only my opinion, this opinion has been voiced publicly in recent weeks by many people, by many visitors, by many residents. And they're right. The town is looking tired. That's the downside. That's one of the negatives I'd like to change. How do we change that? By making us all feel proud of our community again, by having a social pride, by dressing up our shop fronts, by making sure that the gardens and the entrances to town are neat, tidy, clean. Yes, we have great infrastructure problems with one of the entrances to town because there's an enormous amount of business and other things there that don't give us the opportunity to have a nice entrance to town. But there's no reason why it can't be kept well. There's nothing worse than driving into Kingaroy from Brisbane side and see a long, overgrown, vacant piece of land that had the promises of new motels, and all we see is a vacant site, long grass and a construction fence. They're the types of things that deter people from stopping in your town. The Bunny Mountains is, without a doubt, the most significant attraction that we have in the South Burnett. When I was a very young child, back in the early 60s, my father worked on that road, building that road up across the Bunny Mountains. And I can remember very, very vividly when I started to go to school that Alice Creek, which sits just at the bottom of the Bunny Mountains, used to flood frequently. And we'd go down the road in the old tractor, all the old vehicle we had, thrown up on top of a horse to go through the creek to catch the school bus on the other side. Now the road hasn't changed that much in all those years. It is still a very narrow piece of road, which should be a scenic drive to the most beautiful part of the South Burnett. That is the rainforest of the Bunny Mountains. I can tell you now that it is almost an embarrassment to see the condition of the road from this side up, and you go from the Nanango side up, which is still dirt to this day. I would make sure that it is a high priority in where we need to be going to attract more tourism to the Bunny Mountains in the future. I'd be the first to say that there are no more big bags of money going to drop out of the sky to remedy this situation immediately overnight. What we have to do is to prioritise our spending much more efficiently, to be able to look closely at the most important projects which need to be rectified now. I make no excuse. I do not understand why the weir is closed. It must have been a decision some years ago. It's not been in the press of late. However, I do believe that it would make a wonderful place for a rest stop. Across the road, where the caravans are parking overnight now, it's wonderful to see. It would take some money and rethinking a design, a plan of how it could be accessed, and that would be something that would be pursued very vigorously when the funds became available. I believe one of the problems with the South Burnett with attracting tourism to events across the Burnett is the inability for areas or towns to communicate with each other when they're staging their event. We often find that the wine and food in the park in Kingaroy clashes with something happening in Menango at the same weekend, and that the Gomerri Pumpkin Festival, which draws a large amount of people to a small town, clashes with so many others. We need to have a coordinated approach to staging our events in the towns in the South Burnett. The other thing we mustn't do is run them too regularly in the same format. We have to have variety. You can do things to death if you do it 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 years in the same fashion. We need to be creative to make other additional attractions to that event. The beautification of the area is up to us all. The beautification of the area must be a community beautification. Council must play their part. It is a total responsibility of community. Council can't provide everything. Business owners must provide their part. Industry, development on the outskirts in our industrial centres must provide their part. We must reinstill the civic pride in our region so that everybody plays their part across the South Burnett. Destinations in South Burnett are must-see. One is the dams, the Doom and Jockey Peterson, exceptional facilities at both venues. The Bunya Mountains, pristine rainforest, again, beautiful countryside. We look at the festivals across the South Burnett, and there are numerous, wine and food in the park. All of these things add to a lovely weekend, 2-day drive for people to come out of the city and enjoy the South Burnett. There are many other hidden treasures. Coomba Falls is one. The homesteads, Tobinga Homestead, the surrounding homesteads in just outside of our South Burnett area, which are also equally as important. And it's just those attractions that bring people out for a 2-3 day weekend visit. Easter weekend, Easter in the bush. What a wonderful opportunity for people to get out and see what country living is all about. Yes, I'm aware of the crime rate in the South Burnett, and it does worry me dramatically. I would seek to have immediate consultation with the Queensland Police Force to really update us on the current state in the South Burnett. I would envisage more stakeholders being involved in public communication about be it child safety, be it domestic violence shelters for women, all the stakeholders who are involved with looking after people through crime. That would be the most highlighted thing I would do ASAP as I get it there, because if we have a safe community, it will entice people to come and live here. If we have a reputation that has a community full of crime, there is no greater deterrent. Yes, I do believe the South Burnett has an illicit drug problem. You would be fooling yourself to think otherwise. Again, this is not directly Council's responsibility. We have no intervention in keeping our places safe. That is completely up to the Queensland Police Service. However, we can interact with the Queensland Police Service to strategise about the things that are needed in this community, like neighbourhood watch, like dob in a druggie, like protecting whistleblowers who want to dob in that person in their street that is acting suspiciously. We have a role to play. We are not the peacekeepers, but we certainly have a great responsibility, even us as individuals, to check in your street, the vulnerable in your street. Let the police know what the goings are in your street. If you see something suspicious, please notify the police. Your action may save somebody's life, may save some severe domestic violence happening, may save the safety of children's lives. It is all our responsibility, not only Council's. Yes, I'm very much aware we have a domestic violence problem in the South Burnett. It was also highlighted recently by a public breakfast held at SB Care, where groups brought together guest speakers who spoke about domestic violence. Our local magistrate updated everybody on the new domestic violence laws that were pertaining to offenders in domestic violence. Domestic violence, again, is not just council's problem, it is everybody's problem. We live in the streets, we hear what goes on. We see what's happening in our next door. We see children that are frightened. It is up to us, all of us, to take a stand against this. Don't hide behind it. Don't put it behind the door. Bring it out in the open. If you see something suspicious happening in your street, if you see children being abused, it is up to you to report that. We can only liaise with our Queensland Police Force, who do a wonderful job, I might add, who are our paramedics, and all of the person who support the vulnerable in our community. So please, it is all our responsibility, not just council's. It's a good question, a very relevant question. And the short answer is, in the short term, yes. I think we will have to provide funds, depending on the report that comes out before the new council is formed, on the present council. Once we see the report that the administrator is looking into at the moment, to the feasibility of it, to the financial future of it, once we see that report, then we'll have more information. But if I could digress and go back to when we purchased the hospital in 2000, the medical fraternity in the South Burnett collapsed. We went from 10 GPs down to 3. We lost a resident general surgeon of 30 years. The private hospital closed. Geelong Power Station had 1,000 men employed. The public system had no anaesthesists, had no surgeon, had very limited skills. There was no option other than to buy the private hospital, to then start to recuperate, rebuild our resident GPs, to the medical specialists, the medical service and all that. So yes, we will have to possibly fund it for the short term. I don't perceive that we will see it run as a hospital again. My preference would be that we have 2 staff that work in administration for the month, half day a day each, 6 nurses who want to work 4 days in the month, an avenue where we can have the visiting medical specialists come to consult the first day, operate the second day, stay overnight, observe their patients and leave to go back to wherever they came from. That is of critical importance to us to be able to maintain those medical services in the South Burnett. The other 2 options I would like to investigate, one is a palliative care. Everybody needs a pleasant surrounding to spend their last days on this earth. That is of crucial importance to our community. Thirdly, I think we should investigate a hospice, a place where we can have respite for not only the individuals, but for the persons who are taking care of those individuals before they make their transition into nursing care units or nursing facilities. Having said all that, I believe that with the right manager, with the right staff, with the right strategy, this hospital can be up. Not hospital, this new facility with a new stream of services can be up and running financially within 2 years. When I was elected to the Darling Downs Health Service 4 years ago, Kingaroy Public Hospital were lacking in a whole range of services. One is we were transporting numerous people 3 days a week to Toowoomba Base Hospital for their dialysis. We had no surgical procedures being performed in the hospital because we didn't have a surgeon. We had limited anaesthetic skills. The anaesthetics for operations or delivery services were being performed by 2 GPs on contract of the public hospital. These are the things that have changed over the last 4 years. We are now to a stage that we have gone as far as humanly possible to entice the state government to build us a new public hospital. We were offered $8 to $10 million 2 years ago to say we will build you a new emergency and a new birthing suite. And we said no, we need a new facility, we need a new hospital, and we've stuck firm to our word. The two directors on the board that represents our area, myself and Mrs. Dalton, have convinced all of our fellow board members that Kingaroy is of high priority. Even though in the last recent weeks we missed out on a hospital that went to Roma. As late as 2 weeks ago, I spoke directly with the Director General of Health in Toowoomba and asked him why have we been omitted this time? We've been on the top of the list for so long, why we were omitted. He didn't answer the question, but what his promise he did give me was that he will be here in Kingaroy early in April to look at this hospital and will go in and lobby for us, lobby the state government to commence this new hospital. We have a significant surplus that we've accumulated over 4 years in Darling Downs Health Service. We have even offered to contribute $10 to $15 million for the state government to build our new hospital. So we are at the very front door. It is through the process of the internal review committee. I know the plans are being drawn, or have been drawn, so we are well progressed down the track. All I can say now is in the lap of the gods and the politicians to commit to our hospital. One of the questions Lawrence Springborg asked me early on in the piece was if he could do one thing for us, what would it be? And I said, stop the helicopters. And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, we need to have services on the ground. We are spending an absorbent amount of money transferring people out of the South Bernard because we don't have the clinical skill mix here in the ground to provide those services. We brought a gentleman to Kingaroy from Queensland Health who specifically works on clinical skill mix. The clinical skill mix at our public hospital has been wrong for years. Now we have a clinical skill mix that does attend to the needs that we have in the South Bernard. We will have to build upon those needs. When we get a new hospital, we will have a new range of services that will come with it. We will entice other professionals to bring their service to the South Bernard, both public and private. The one thing we will never do is we will not get private visiting specialists working in a public hospital. They like to stay in their own areas. So we need to have the mixture of two hospitals to retain the best possible service for our clientele in the South Bernard. One, a place for visiting specialists to come and, as I said before, consult, operate, observe, travel back. Again, we must have a numerous number of specialist services in the public service that caters for the public system. Right now, we are the envy of the Western world. We have the best health service in the Western world. It is time we start appreciating what we've got. Okay, mental health is a huge problem in our community and across Australia. It is a collective problem that we all must face, from the person who treat them, who diagnose them, to the persons who take them into custody on many occasions, to the person who transport them, to the person who has to secure their safety and the safety of those people who are closely dealing with persons with a mental health issue. I sat through the Foster inquiry and saw many heartbroken families who had absolute praise for the good works of our police, our ambulance services, our doctors and our nursing staff, but were totally frustrated because their child or the member of their family didn't have a diagnosis. Until they have a tag, they can't get into the system that's going to specifically provide the services needed for that individual. That is a terribly distressing process. What we need is more communication by the key stakeholders here on the ground in the South Bernard Nobody knows our patch better than we do. The collective stakeholders here in the South Burnett must come together as one voice so that council can take that one voice to the person, right to the door of the persons who make the decisions about providing on-the-ground services to help our mental health issues. As a councillor, if I'm elected on the 19th of next month, I will pursue vigorously that this happens. I have the contacts, I have the people that we need to talk to. What we need to do is collectively get together as a community, as a group of stakeholders who have genuine concern, and reaffirm that with the statistics and figures that we need to be proceeding forward. Yes, we do have a problem with social rigging in this country, in our area in particular. And again, how do we address this? Education, I believe. Education, communication, everybody being involved with it. And for you, as an individual, to look into the mirror and say honestly to yourself, do I have a problem? Once we can focus on the individual and that person's needs, and they can get to respect the fact that they have a problem, then something can happen about it. We can try all of the enforcement ways of improving a culture, but I don't think that's the answer. Culture has to be changed by culture. Motivate people to make a change, to make a distinctive change in their own lifestyle. There is no good coming from binge drinking. There is no good coming from alcohol and substance abuse collectively. There are people that get hurt continually by this problem. It is a cultural problem, and it is a problem that can only be remedied by education. I will ensure council that will lend every assistance to all of the frontline people who are working in this area. Together, if we talk to one another, communicate, understand our problems, we have a better chance of being responsive to these problems. Generally, when you're confronting a social issue in a community such as ours, when you look at the support services that you have in the community, on many occasions they're adequate. The problem lies in the silo mentality of these individual organisations who, from time to time, use confidentiality as a smokescreen to hide behind. When they could sit in a room and generalise about their reaction, their workload, the things that they come encounter with, they could generalise on that in a communal forum of like-minded stakeholders. I see council playing an important role of bringing these groups of people together, these major stakeholders, to sit down and collectively form a strategy that is going to look very closely at how to react with the problems that we have in our community. All rural communities across Australia have similar problems, and domestic violence is not only pertaining to rural communities but the whole of the community right across. However, the rural communities generally are affected more because they do not have sufficient agencies that can handle the domestic violence problem. One of the things I find in council that in most rural communities we do have a lot of agencies. There are a lot of networks out there that can provide adequate services. What I do find very interesting is that they still have a silo mentality, that they are protecting their own backyard, that they are forced by the bonds of confidentiality that they can't disclose things. And that's well and good. Everybody's confidentiality must be respected. But these stakeholders have an opportunity to discuss generally about the problems that are directly affecting our community. And it's only through that communication that we talk to each other, that we understand the problems, that we are all working from the same page, that we can address the problems more efficiently. I would rather be proactive than reactive in this. I would try to bring together all of the stakeholders as quickly as possible to tear down those barriers, get them acting as a community organisation to address these issues. That's the role that I hope Council will be playing, and I will be endeavouring to influence, because I'll be part of a team if I get there. I'll be playing my damnedest role to convince all of those councils these are the necessary steps that we need to take to make our community a safer, much more enjoyable place to live. Budget's the one single item that's on everybody's lips. As ratepayers, I think we all pay too much rates. Even I think that. How do we improve that situation? By being more efficient, by looking closely at our expenditure. If I get returned to council on the 19th of next month, my first meeting will be with the mayor, the financial managers and the line managers. Because generally, when we have poor budget performances, we have a poor culture that goes along with it. If we can address the culture, I'm not asking anybody to work harder, I'm asking people to work smarter. We don't have to break our backs doing harder, longer hours. We can work together being smarter, more efficient. I would ask the line managers for a 2.5% reduction in their budget now, as from now, and we'll monitor that with KPIs every 3 months until next year, until next financial year's budget. I would then ask for across the board 2.5% increase in productivity. Again, as I stress, not working harder, working smarter. Together with this, we can achieve this. We can have better strategies, be more efficient, and return a better result to our ratepayers. Okay, sitting on the outside of council, I can't at this point in time make wholehearted decisions, informed decisions about budget expenditure. I'd have to see the inside workings of where the budget's placed, what are current budget items, expenditure, and then reassess it from that point of view. Generally speaking, everything that council does is transparent. When you go to a council meeting, it is sitting there in front of you. You can all come and sit and watch and look at the transparency that transpires during a council meeting. However, there are some sensitive negotiations on potential business investment, potential project, who may require their business to be kept confidential. So it's a needs to know basis. Council, the mayor and the CEO, often the mayor and the deputy mayor will keep things between themselves until they reach a secure point and the other party is willing to declare their hand or speak publicly about their business venture. The line a councillor walks or a mayor walks with regard to transparency is a fine one. There is a fine time when things are to be made transparent and a fine time where things aren't to be. If you are in close negotiation with a prospective investor who may like to keep their investment opportunities or proposals coming into your community on the quiet for the time being, that has to be observed. That has to be maintained. To build confidence between council and investors is number one priority. When it is ready for announcement, then council will go to public and let them inform them of the opportunities and what may be happening in a new long-term venture. Retransparency and costs that are passed on to ratepayers it will be one of my high priorities, if I'm elected to council, to make sure that ratepayers at all times are fully informed of the council workings with regard to rates and charges. Again, I will be part of a team, and this will be a collective decision, but it will be my own personal feeling that you should have every right to know where your rates and how your rates are being spent. Savings can always be made in councils or boards or any organisation. It's being prudent when purchasing items or articles or stocks or things that we need to run our business. Again, careful consideration about every purchase and how we're spending that money is of crucial importance. And not only affects councils, it affects everybody down the line who has a change, who plays a part in acquiring materials, assets for a council. Okay, the road levy is on everybody's lips at the moment. Every person I've spoken to has mentioned the road levy, and the question is, will you drop it? At this point in time, it would be unprofessional of me to say, give you a categorical yes, that we will drop the road levy, because I will only be one of 7 other people making this decision. We would investigate thoroughly the need to retain the road levy or remove it. That's the only promise that I can give you at this point in time. Let me start by answering the last part of that question first. The waste management service and collection to people residing 15 minutes from town centre. There is a thing called bin banks, which you could have a collective of householders who are living that far out in a bin bank where a council truck could come along and pick up those bins at regulated service times to help the issue. This has been done, it is affordable, it can be done. It just needs investigation. Secondly, on to the landholders who have large tracts of land and only have a dirt road and potholes. I can sympathise with you in the respect that you may only see a graded road once a year, or you may get the grass slashed once a year. That is a problem. I understand that, and I can sympathise with your beliefs. However, we are like insurance policies. We all pay in collectively to receive the services that we get back. Council does not make profits, it provides services in the best way possible. We need to be able to rationalise and prioritise more the spending on rural roads so that everybody gets a better shake. Let me tell you first off, local councils don't design bridges. They do design roads to a large degree, but we are councils, I believe still, and as I said, it's 8 years I've been there, are directed wholly and solely by state government engineers who determine the type of construction, the type of roadwork that need to be done. So by and large, that is purely outside of the control of local council. However, that doesn't mean to say that our engineers and our maintenance people shouldn't be questioning those. I think you'll find after the last two floods in 2009, 2011, whatever they were, that state government came under a lot of criticism about their bridge construction. Having spent hundreds of thousands of dollars one year constructing a new bridge, by 2 years later, the same bridge being washed away. I have heard state ministers stand up and said, we need to revise our engineering processes as state government. That's the best answer I can give you at this point in time. Again, roads are a complicated issue. Some are main roads, some are local roads, some are local government responsibilities, some are the Roads Rural Alliance responsibility. If I could take the rest of the day here talking and trying to explain to you who looks after which road, but that would be fruitless. All I can say is that, again, we would have to address the funds that are coming to council, re-look at the way those funds are being allocated and prioritise much more efficiently. There is no big pot of money that's going to drop out of the sky to give us more amount of money to spend on roads. We have to use the purse that we have much more efficiently than what we have been in the past. That's a question I can't answer at the moment. I'm not privy to the financial constraints of council or the financial income. I did see a press article that said that they were happy with the money that they received for capital works this year with road funding. Again, if I get re-elected, then I'll be more privy to those sorts of figures. The main roads methodology and how they allocate funding is absolutely incredibly complex. I can remember sitting in council back in 2000, 2004, where this gentleman came out from Main Roads and spent 5 hours with us trying to convince us that this is the way they allocated their road funding. After 5 hours of intense negotiation and explanation, I still said to this fellow, I believe the only way you determine road funding is by throwing a dart or a number on the wall. Outsourcing is a priority of council, I believe, because cost of maintaining and owning plant and equipment is an enormous cost to council these days. I firmly believe that if we have expensive equipment that is sitting getting cold, we don't need them. However, you must balance the cost of bringing contractors in against having your own equipment to do the work. A balancing act that all councils do from time to time, but it doesn't take much to do an actual cross-section costing of what it is costing council. Downtime versus productivity versus cost of plant and equipment. They were one of the things that I'll be pursuing vigorously when I get into council. One of the things that I'll be eager to find out is the ratio between inside work staff and outside work staff at council. When I was in council last time, we had a very close working relationship with both of our outside staff, who are the guys and girls that put the hard work into delivering the services on the ground. I want to see what our comparison is across the state with other councils and see if we are working efficiently or ineffectively in the workforces that we have. One of the things that used to happen when I was a council in 2004 is that each year we would take a day to drive every road in our division or our allotted area. We would take the engineer with us and a foreman from the road crew to examine the roads, local roads I'm talking about. These are the roads closely in our vicinity in each of our divisions of the Shire, so that we know full hand which has a higher priority than others. We then allocate the budget to the work that's going to be performed in the forthcoming 12 months. Again, it's about priority. It's about using the funds more wisely that we have in our hand and lobbying stronger, more efficiently for a better piece of the pie. CQU would be a great advancement to any education facility that they may like to supply in the South Burnett. Anybody that we can attract here to supply on the ground further information, studies, and the facilities that need to go with further education. Isn't that absolutely big benefit? We have an underutilised TAFE system at the moment. We would look at where the federal funding and state funding is to rejuvenate the TAFE system so that we can provide trade apprenticeships, schooling here. Nursing would be another great one. There's a whole list of things that we could put through the TAFE College as further education facilities. I'd certainly be only too pleased to request a feasibility study. There are numerous options. We live in a country with brilliant sunlight, wind power, a whole range of things. However, some of these things are very sceptical of the community. The wind turbine generation has still yet to come to fruition to even get close to commencing a project. But I have a very open mind about alternative sources of power, and I would dearly look closely at what we could do as a council. First of all, I checked the state land bank. We as a local council are restricted by and large by state government legislation with regard to a rural land bank. Council does have certain properties that I think are in pristine, not so much pristine, but ideal opportunities for further expansion. Okay, the council depot is one. We looked at when I was back in council at a retirement village. I still think that has an enormous possibility because there is other land closely associated that would generate enough area to produce a wonderful retirement village. I think we have an enormous opportunity to do more in the renewable energy sector in the South Burnett. Again, as I said before, we have a wonderful atmosphere, we have great sunlight, we have great wind power opportunities. For goodness sake, we have some of the best thermals in Australia. That's why we have gliding out here. So the atmospheric conditions in the South Burnett is ideally suited to a lot of alternative sources of energy. I believe without a reasonable doubt that our first community should be recognised under the Constitution and be given every right that every other person in this country has and takes for granted. First of all, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but my personal feelings are that I think all Australians are equal. If you become a nationalised Australia, you enjoy the freedom, the freedom and the opportunities that goes with that being an Australian. I have no problem with everybody that becomes a naturalised Australian having the same rights as I do as Australian. It's a very complex question. I would encourage an enormous amount of debate on this, particularly with the first people, the first generation. They will then decide how they would like to see their heritage preserved, as did the Scots, as did the Italians, as do everybody else on the face of the earth. One of the things that I would look forward to trying to accomplish is the South Burnett Regional Council meeting with the Cherbourg Council at least once or twice a year to discuss the differences in our communities, how we can work more closely and cohesive together, how we can engender an awareness of cultural differences. I think by communication and extracting the areas that are sensitive to both groups, we will then come forward with a positive solution. It'll be a generational thing, but we've got to start somewhere, and I think that would be one of the first places I'd like to start, by open and frank discussion between two communities, two councils, and then forming a strategy that we can move forward with. I think we're on the cusp of an enormous change. We have an enormous amount of technology, but we're not using it to its totally best effect. I think, again, we have an enormous amount of technology, but we are only using a small proportion of it. I think the creativity of people in local government has the capacity to look at technology on a much broader scale. If you look at the health system at the moment, we're looking at, the health system is closely looking at telehealth, which will provide enormous benefit, save in travelling expenses, and people can be seen in their own communities and diagnosed with some of their problems. I think council has the opportunity with a lot of technology like that we should be looking closely at. I think there are lots of ways we can improve on our communication. Forums are, some of the forums that I've been to up until coming up to the election, I think have been absolutely wonderful to listen and to sit back and see what reactions are there from the ratepayers. Ratepayers need to be heard. You're paying your money for rates for our community. Council's handling that money. Councils provide services. So there's got to be good, clear, open communication. If we're going to improve on the system, we've got to engage all stakeholders to talk openly and transparently and work together, because a lot of the issues that are confronting our community, we can only make better by clear communication and everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. I think there's lots of ways we can improve on telecommunications in the area. I've often said in jest on many occasions that I don't care about the NBN. All I would really like is a good, strong, sound mobile phone system that we can communicate anywhere in the South Burnett. Having said that, I'd be the first one to appreciate the NBN and what it will do for business and across the region. This was an enormous pipe dream of many organisations 10 years ago, whether we're going to go paperless or not. I don't think we're any closer to going paperless now than when we were 10 years ago. However, we are still cutting down forests. We are still using some of the most wonderful trees in our environmental areas across the country. We have to make a concerted effort to get rid of some of the paperwork that we have in society, full stop. Many years ago I had political aspirations of going further in politics until one day the mayor that I was working with, Roger Nunn, said to me, "Terry, if you want to do something for your community, if you want to make a difference, stay in local government, because the moment you step into the big arena, you're then bound by the party machine." And I think he's very true to this case at this day and age. I think the party politics of this country is one of the worst things that's happened to our democracy. Having said that, yes, I am a member of the LNP party. I'm not a practicing member. I attend some of the functions where they invite ministers to so we can ask the questions we need to ask. But my heart and soul is making a difference right here in our community and across our region. I have so many degrees from the University of Hard Knocks, all hung up on the back of my working day life. My total experience has come from my life skills. I've been to 2 job interviews in my lifetime, one at 14 years of age, one at 17. The rest of my life I've been self-employed. Anybody that can run a small business for 40 years successfully is doing something right. Yes, when I get into council, one of the first things I understand that we do have directors. We have skilled people, we have educated people who are experts in town planning, structural, a whole range of issues right across council. And their degree, their job is to tell us how we're going to go about doing that. My position is to A, set the culture, be the driver of that culture, and C, to use common sense and the efficiencies that I've learned in my own practice of using our money wisely, prioritising our road maintenance and the whole of council's business in a much better way, so that A, it gives more on the ground solutions to problems. We have greater transparency that people can be have reaffirmed confidence in councillors, and that our staff inside are working to the best of their capacities to deliver council's business. back in 2000, 2004, this was the most embarrassing question. I did not realise that we had to ascertain our own remuneration. Right now, I believe the current situation is that LGAQ or state government sets the salary for councillors across the state. I don't believe councillors have to go through that rigorous task of making a decision, are you worth it or are you not? Having said that fact, I think the mayor is adequately compensated. I don't believe the deputy mayor is. I think councillors are underpaid if they are putting in the hours to provide the service that ratepayers expect of them. And yes, I'd be the first one to say that straight out. Everybody should be paid a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. In the years 2000, 2008, when I was in council, councillors made a very positive decision that councillors' salaries would not increase any more than what the workforce of council would do, and I think that's a very fair way of ascertaining. But to my knowledge at the moment, I think it's defined by LGAQ and state government. I think the mayor's salary is well compensated for. I don't believe the deputy mayor his salary is terribly attractive, and I believe councillors are underpaid because it's if you're going to attack your portfolio in a positive manner and put the hours in, there's a lot of hours goes into being a good councillor, a positive working councillor these days. So I believe that you should be paid accordingly. The answer to the question is, will I be giving myself a pay rise? That's out of my hands. I think that comes with state government legislation. I really and sincerely hope it's only a perceived perception of corruption in local government. I know the checks and balances inside the systems when I was there last was very stringent, and it's very difficult sometimes to pick up corruption unless you have a change of positions. One person sometimes leaves the position, and because the culture in that position has been going on for some time, a new person comes in, sits down in that chair and finds out something straight away. That, in essence, sometimes is probably one of the only ways that you pick up corruption. The auditing processes in council are fairly stringent. The financial auditing is very strong, and as I said before, I hope it's only a perceived process, a perceived option that there is corruption in local government. Again, this is a communal problem. It is up to us all to make sure that there is no place for racist comments, racist remarks in our society. I think that's an absolute appalling situation that we live in such a wonderful democratic country these days, yet we still have a redneck element that brings us down. There is no room for racism in the workplace or in our society, full stop. I don't tolerate it, and I will make sure that every action council does also applies to getting rid of racism in any way, shape or form. Workplace health and safety is an issue that pertains to us all. As a council, it is of high importance that our staff are skilled and up to date with all of the procedures and requirements under the Workplace Health and Safety Act. I would make sure that our staff are continually upgraded in their training, continually assessing the way they perform their day-to-day business, to making sure that we have a regime of strict revisiting the sites, making sure that everything's in order, that there are no potential dangers, no trip hazards, no risks to the public at large. Again, workplace health and safety is not only my problem, it's everybody's problem, and anybody who sees a potential danger must report it immediately so we can take further steps to make sure that the public by and large are safe. I think a lot of people look at workplace health and safety as just a document that you don't have to take too much notice to. Let me tell you, workplace health and safety is one of the most strongest pieces of legislation that we have in this country at this moment. In my own business, my employees, myself, embrace workplace health and safety culture. It is of paramount importance to our everyday working capacity. The community by and large doesn't embrace workplace health and safety with the same cultural effect that we do. In the building industry, there are a lot of cowboys. Workplace health and safety has gotten rid of a lot of that stuff. I will make sure that, I believe council has a very strong workplace health and safety culture. I will continue to propagate that culture to make sure that not only are our workers incredibly safe, that the general public in the recreation areas and public sites, that workplace health and safety is adhered to beyond the legislation that is imposed upon us.